I'm Mary Rose, author of the Inquiring Minds interviews on Cal Catholic Daily. I'm speaking today with Father Joseph Illo of Star of the Sea Parish in San Francisco about his most recent blog, Phoneless, from January 29th. You can find Father Illo's blogs at fatherilloblog.com. And in your blog, Father, you made a somewhat provocative statement that phone use is similar to consuming pornography. And I assume that extends to all screens. Um, could you expand on that a little bit more?
Yes, I will. Now, we are on a phone right now, and so it's a little ironic, perhaps, that we're talking about the evils of the screen while we're using a screen. So, with that caveat that the medium itself can be used for good or evil, I would say that when we use a screen just to satisfy our curiosity, the distinction between curiosity and studiousness, if we're just looking for titillating information, then it's like pornography to be constantly on our phones because we're not seeing deeply, we're just or understanding anything in terms of first principles and final ends, but just getting little endorphin hits or whatever those bits of information and gossip provide for our emotions. So in that sense, they're like pornography because you see not enough. You only see, you obsess over um, little parts of the whole human person or the whole human experience instead of trying to see the beauty of order.
So I guess that would be distinction, for instance, just watching a movie. Like, or when, TV first came on the scene, when people, family sat around the TV together, that would be a different use of the screen, even though it's not studiousness, it's purely entertainment. Would you see that as a good?
Well, it depends on, yes, what you are watching on TV. It could be a well done documentary or a movie that helps us understand life and our purpose in it. But the phone is so often used just for gossip and useless information. We use it compulsively. All of us do. We check news feeds, we check texts and social media not to understand anything more deeply very much. I mean, it might be used for that to some degree, but usually it's just because we feel empty inside and it fills us up a little bit. It's like eating Cheetos or M&Ms or something. It gives us a little hit to keep going from moment to moment. The TV is itself an ambivalent technology, as we all know. I remember reading in college, and this was 40 years ago, I remember reading a book called Four Reasons for the Elimination of Television. This was this was written 50 years ago, 45 years ago. So, and there were four very good reasons, but one of them was that the, the you're lulled, your brain kind of is uh, hypnotized into thinking what you're seeing is reality, and it's not. It's just a picture. People will say that today about the mass. Father, I went to mass on television. I mean, even to say that, if you stop and think about that, uh, it means that our senses have been, an intellect have so dulled that we think the mass can, in any real way, be transmitted fully through a cathode ray tube or an LCD screen. Because there are not too many cathode ray tubes anymore.
Well,
That's
that's
it.
okay. That takes me on just a side, hopefully just a short sidetrack here. During the lockdowns, there was discussion in my family about what to do when we were not allowed to attend mass, and some members of the family preferred to watch a reverent, well done mass on Sunday. We were trying to, mark Sunday in some way, however we could. And other members of the family would go to the parish and stand outside the locked doors, and you could sometimes make out part of the mass going on or see through the crack part of the mass going on. So in one sense, you were physically present, but not able to hear very much, or see very much. On the other hand, you could see and hear everything, but you weren't actually there. So it was kind of a, I mean, in neither sense did we actually think we were attending mass, but it was, more a discussion of how do we actually pray better. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think was actually the distinction there? Even if you can see it, it's a live mass, and you're watching and hearing everything online versus being present, like you're a lot closer, but you can't hear, which is actually
Yes,
more present.
good question. There was a family in my parish that refused to watch Mass on TV during the lockdowns. They prayed together as a family. They read the readings, but they wouldn't go through a social media or a screen to pray. And I think they were right. It made me think at the time, why am I live streaming my masses? So why is that? Because Christianity especially places a lot of importance on location, on place, on physically being present. The Lord God is in heaven, but he became physically present through the incarnation in a place and a time with individuals. And so that's the Mass. That's the continuation of the incarnation in the here and now. And to just take a picture of that, which is what live streaming is interesting, but it's so not the Mass. it, it it violates that core principle of our of liturgical worship, which is to be present physically. That's why you can't receive absolution over the phone line. Why not? Well, I mean, what's the argument against confessions over Zoom? And the answer is you have to be in the same place with the priest, because God put himself in the same place as we are, that is Bethlehem, and he does it every time in the Mass by becoming incarnate in the host. So uh, there's a principle of Christianity that informed Western civilization that has slipped away, not only from Catholics but from everybody. The importance of being in a local place. There's lip service paid to it because we all miss neighborhoods, and so like these big chain restaurants and stores say your local supermarket or your local restaurant, your neighborhood restaurant. Trying to think of some of the chains that say that. Applebee's, your local neighborhood restaurant. Mine's it's exactly not that. It's an international chain, and they're all the same, and they're not individualized. They have to serve the same food and have the same architecture, and no matter whatever country they're in. It's like saying McDonald's is your local eatery. So to recapture, to regain a sense of place and the incarnate reality of God and our own incarnate reality, we become more disembodied the more we use screens. We become less human. It's one of the key factors in the dehumanization of our time. Always going through a screen as we are now.
I was about to say that as we are now. So I mean, you talked about your retreat and the importance of disconnecting from your phone. You talked about how long the days felt, how expansive the days felt, which I can see why not having a phone would do that, but I also wonder if it's just because you were on retreat too. The fact that you didn't have responsibilities made the days more expansive and open. But as we approach Lent, and probably anyone who's read your blog is probably considering their use of their phone, what would you do you have ideas for what people could do to disconnect from their phone a little bit during Lent? If it's just to develop new habits or actually, purely penitential, and ways to be more present and be more human, as you said.
Yes. First of all, back to what you said, maybe I felt the days were longer because it was a retreat. Well, I've been on lots of retreats with my phone. This is the only one I had didn't have my phone, and there was a difference. So yes, I've been in monasteries where there's nothing but the liturgy of the hours all day. There's not even any preached conferences, and the days seem more full and long on this priest retreat because I think because I didn't have my phone. Okay, now back to the question at hand. What to do with our devices during Lent? Well, I think you start with putting limits on your time with your devices. So say no more media after 9 o'clock. And I've been doing that for years with recorded music and just getting back to my rectory, my room by 9 o'clock. So that's one of my practices. And I look forward to it every Lent to be back in my room at 9 o'clock with books, with no music, no screens. Now it's hard to do that. So I use my phone as my alarm clock and I take it to bed with me, right? It's on my nightstand. But I resolved at one point, I don't want to make this more dramatic than it is. It was just a resolution, a decision not to look at any media after 9 p.m. and certainly not after I'm in bed, to check text and news and stuff. So I do that about half the time. It is such a strong pull to say, well, let's see what's on Cal Catholic today. I haven't checked it in 10 hours, but let's see what's on my other news feeds, or somebody may have texted me. Now, why am I doing that? It's simply because I feel empty, lonely, because I want to be tickled, because I want to know that somebody loves me. They texted me. It's almost a physical drive that we all have to. Well, the people that sell this media call it being connected, but it's a false sense of connection. But it's a sense of being connected. You feel like you're connected, but it's illusory. However, it's very addictive. So what can we do during Lent? Let's say no use of screens after 9 o'clock. Let's say Fridays or Wednesdays or some other day, especially Friday, obviously. You don't have meat. How about not having any media on Friday as well? It's easy to give up meat every Friday. I like fish better anyway. It's much harder and much more healthy to give up media, non-essential media on every Friday of the year, but especially during Lent.
That's a good one. Another one is to turn your phone on grayscale,
Oh, I
just
never
because it
thought of
makes it
that.
just less attractive overall.
Yeah,
And you're
I didn't know you could do that.
I had to Google it to figure out how. But but yeah, I mean, for me, it just makes my phone less attractive, and so it makes it if I'm going to look something up, I'm more likely to actually make a point of it and go and do it on my computer rather than on my phone, which then makes it I mean, I don't like the word mindful, but it makes me more mindful of what I'm doing rather than just endless looking at stuff on my phone. So that's another simple idea,
Sure, and I
that I
think you
have.
could also give up videos for the entire 40 days, 46 days if you count with Sundays. Just give up YouTubes. We don't need them, and they're more
Except
often than not harmful.
except except for interviews with Father Illo.
Huh, well, I don't know. Maybe we should give that up too for Lent.